Are lease purchase programs the best way to get you into a truck? On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're going to break down the risks of lease purchase programs. Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family. Hey, welcome back to Driven Too Far. Say, I've got a question for you, and I want to know if lease purchase programs are still viable. And the reason I'm asking you that, one of the things we do here on this podcast is I promise to pull back the curtain and kind of show you what's going on behind the scenes. So I want to share some things with you. This is kind of our own journey with the leasing programs and kind of where we're at today on things. So I think it's been kind of interesting, and I'm curious what you think about it too. But so if I jump back to 2018, that was the year I started with Chief Carriers. And when I got there, their typical trade cycle on trucks was 7 years. So to me, that was a little too long. And I think years ago, like in the early 2000s, 7 years made sense because that was about when you would get 1 million miles on a truck. And before all the DEF and the EGR and all the emission stuff on these things, you could generally get 1 million miles out of the truck before you had to rebuild it. So 7 years made sense back then. I don't think it makes sense today. So one of the first things we did was we looked at that. We looked at our expenses, particularly our maintenance expenses as those trucks got older. And we said, yeah, this doesn't work because what I'm kicking out in maintenance expense to keep these things on the road, I could be putting towards a payment on a new truck. So we moved the fleet to a 4-year trade cycle in 2020. And so at the same time, 2020, we launched our lease purchase and lease operator program. So we wanted to create a program for drivers that would do one of two things for you. It would be the lease operator would put you into a new truck, allow you to lease it for up to 4 years. And then when that truck became eligible, to trade out of our system, to trade out of our fleet, you could re-up and get back into a new truck again. That was one option. The second option was the actual lease purchase. So that was designed for the trucks that could come out of service at 4 years, but maybe a driver actually wanted to own a truck. And I know that's a goal a lot of drivers is, man, I just want to own the truck for one time in my life. I want to pay this thing off. I want a title in my hand and I want to own it. So that's what the lease purchase part of that was. So real quick, let's make sure we understand the difference between a lease operator and a lease purchase program. So lease operator, new or newer trucks. In our case, it's anything from 1 to 4 years old. They're a short-term lease, meaning we re-up that lease every year. So every January 1st, you can stay in the truck you're in. You could trade up to a new truck if we had something newer to offer you, whatever that looks like. But the idea is you're just going to be renting the truck. And that's part of your business model as a lease operator is you never plan to own the truck. You're just going to rent the truck as part of your business expenses because you're always going to be able to stay into a truck that's under factory warranty. And that's the key. The lease purchase program was designed for drivers that want to own the truck. And, those are the trucks that are 4 years scheduled to come out on the trade cycle, but we essentially sell it to you and we finance it for you. We can, the payments are a lot smaller, but the trade-off with that is that your maintenance expense is going to be higher because we already know that, right? We know once they get past 4 years, 500,000 mile mark, the maintenance starts to go up. So the question is, can you keep that thing running until it's paid off in either a 2 or 3 year time frame on that lease purchase? So we're running both programs. Both have been successful, and we've had some pros and cons to both of them. So I wanted to share that with you. And again, I'm really focused on the lease purchase side of it today because I've got some of my own questions that we're working through and we're answering. The lease purchase, I can think of a couple instances where we had drivers buy trucks from us. They were in the middle of probably a 2.5, 3 year buyout on the truck. And in our case, we financed that or helped them get the financing. They're making payments, they're depreciating, they're gaining equity with every payment. And the deal is at the end of that 3-year term, you're going to own the truck, or it's going to have a $1 buyout. You're going to own the truck. Here's the title. It's all yours. Still running. You can do whatever you want with it. You can continue to run it in the fleet. You can go trade it up, use that as your down payment to a newer truck if that's what you want. But you have some options. But I can think of a couple instances where we've had some bigger mechanical issues. In fact, motors go down on us, to be exact. And one was a Detroit motor, one was a Cummins motor. So I don't know that it matters what it was, but the hard part is to know what to do. So let's say you're in the middle of that 3-year buyout on this truck. This truck is now 5.5 years old. It's got 600,000 miles on it. The motor goes down. So what do? Do you have the money set aside, 40 grand, to rebuild the motor? Is that what you're going to do? Most drivers don't. So when that happens, of course, they look back to us for help and assistance. Like, I've never done this before. I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure what makes the best sense. So we sit down and we talk about some options. One of the things we could do is we could figure out how to pay for the repair, meaning the company pays for the repair. We tack that on the back end of your note, which is going to be 40 grand, probably another 2 years to pay that thing off. So that's an option. It might work. You've got a 600,000 mile truck now with a fresh motor on it. Are the rest of the components gonna last? I hope so. Sometimes you have to deal with transmissions and rear ends. Other times you start to deal with other stuff that isn't major components, but it has to do with corrosion and wiring. And, of course, the DEF systems themselves can be tricky and expensive to fix too. So everything's a gamble. You don't always know. So that's one option. We could help you with the cost of the engine rebuild and tack it onto the back of your note, and hopefully that works. The other option is we've got a truck with a motor that's down. We could try to sell it as is. In theory, you're purchasing that truck. So we could take it to auction, we could sell it, we could scrap it, get whatever value is out of it. So if that thing's worth 10 grand with a bad motor in it, you sell it for 10 grand. Is that 10 grand enough to pay off your existing note? So that's one question. If it is, then you're kind of free and clear of that truck. You didn't even make any gains, I guess, with it, but at least you got out from under it and it didn't hurt you in any way. The other side of that is you get 10 grand and you still owe 20 on the truck. Now what do? You're still on the hook for that other 10,000 because you're going to take the 10,000 you got from the sale of the truck, put it towards the note, but it's still got a balance of 10 grand. So what are you going to do with that? So those are the dilemmas that we have to kind of work through and talk through. And this is some of the things that was going on with us in a couple different instances where we had that happen. We had motors go down. In both cases, I can say that we ended up putting the money back in the truck, rebuild the motor, and the driver opted to extend the note. So it's working so far, but from my point of view, it just feels like too much risk. These are well-maintained trucks, and the two drivers that I'm thinking of that this happened to, they're smart guys. They weren't neglecting maintenance or anything like that. They were doing it right. They were good drivers and good operators. So sometimes you don't know when the thing's going to go down on you. Now, real quick to jump over to the lease operator program, the advantage there is the vehicle should be under factory warranty the entire time you're leasing it. We've had issues with newer trucks too, right? May not always be the motor, but it may be some component of the motor. We've had some trucks that have had injector issues. And while that doesn't seem like a big deal, when the parts aren't available, it becomes a big deal because now the truck's down and you're waiting on it and it's costing you time. So it's not going to necessarily cost you anything to fix the vehicle. That'll be covered under the warranty. But you do have downtime, and you have downtime where you're not making any income and you still got truck payments, insurance payments, all those things due. So that can become an issue too. So I don't want to say the lease operator side of it is perfect, but it does give you more peace of mind from a driver's point of view when you know that your vehicle is under warranty and anything major would likely be covered under that warranty. So jump back to the lease purchase side. That was the dilemma we were really trying to figure out. And from the company's point of view, again, it's kind of risky, meaning there's a reasonable chance that something's going to happen in year 5, 6, and 7 of ownership of that truck where it's a major component. The driver may or may not have enough money to cover the repairs in that, which means the company's probably going to have to get back involved to help with that. So that's what I'm questioning right now. Is it worth my risk or the company's risk to continue that lease purchase program, or is there an alternate way to look at that? So one of the things we've kind of come up with now is we still have drivers that want to buy out their trucks at the end of that 4 years. They like the truck, right? They've had it since it was new. They really like the vehicle. And again, they're driven by, just one time I want to pay a truck off and I want to own the thing type stuff. So they become really attached to the vehicle. The alternate thing we're looking at now is, do we go buy an extended warranty after that 4-year, 500,000 mile warranty is up, the original factory warranty? And generally speaking, I know you can get at least 2 more years on the vehicle, and it varies by manufacturer. So we're talking about going to the OEMs and buying their extended warranties. I know there's third-party warranties out there that are available too. I'm just not so sure how good they are. So I feel more comfortable with the OEMs because I know exactly what's going to be covered, and we know the people we need to work with through those things and stuff. So now I can get an extra 2 years extended on it. Now, how do I feel about selling that lease purchase truck back to that driver? I feel a lot better. There's still some risk there because it may not cover, the extended warranty may not cover the vehicle for the entire time that it's under finance. But it's certainly a much better, the odds are much better of us being successful with that lease. So anyways, that's really where we're at right now. I'm curious what you think on that too. I just think the lease plans are so popular right now, whether it's lease operator, lease purchase. I don't really want to give up the lease purchase because there's a handful of guys out there that's really what they're looking for. But I think this is a good alternative that may protect us both and allow us to be successful in those leasing plans. If you're curious about our lease purchase programs at Chief Carriers, check us out at chiefcarriers.com.